So for my final, I chose to cover Malice Mizer, a VK band that was active during the 1990s, um, and who had very limited merch releases. Very hard to find any physical media of them. Very hard to listen to them on any streaming platforms. They're very kind of enigmatic, but they were super popular in the 90s, and they still have a pretty dedicated fan base. Um, yeah, I just thought they were really cool. They have very flamboyant outfits, as you can see here, um, and that kind of contributes to this notion that they were more than a band. They were also, strongly an act, um, especially during the era when this photo was taken with Mr. Gact right here. But very cool band. I like them a lot, and I just really wanted to cover their kind of history, um, their sound and stuff. So as you can see here, the band has had multiple eras. A lot of people. Um, you know, it was kind of a rotating cast. Um, these three here, Mana, Cozy, and Yuki, they all stayed on, for the entire duration. You had Mana and Yuki, um, and Cozy. These two are kind of the founders, the two guitar players. They strongly contribute to the polyphonic, dual guitar sound that they have, which is a consistency throughout their entire discography. It's very much their sound. Yuki came on a little later, but he's been with the band the entire time. And down here you have the three vocalists, which, if you're talking based on era, you're generally going to use the vocalist to identify. You have Tetsu for the first 2 years, then Gacht for the corresponding four up until Klaha at the end. And these two, um, I mean, Gaz was only the drummer for like 2 years. um, Kami was the drummer up until his death in, of course, 1999. Um, but yeah, this is kind of because everybody was involved. Gak is by far the most popular. Very cool vocalist. He would go on to have his own solo career. He's still very much a celebrity today. Um, but yeah, so the band is the brainchild of Mana primarily, and Cozy, but mainly Mana. And he's the one who christens the band Malice Mizer, based on the French phrase "Malice et what is it? Malice et misewa." Yeah, that's what it is. um, which in French means malice and misery, which was his answer to what the identifying qualities of the human race are, which very kind of bleak, but I guess it kind of matches the early on. They had a very goth aesthetic, traditional goth, a lot of black and makeup. To change later on, as you can see in a lot of these photos, very extravagant. Um, but yeah, so band is kind of Mana's brainchild, um, and basically him and Cozy come up with the band. They recruit Yuki, awesome. They recruit Gaz, and they recruit Tetsu. Tetsu's the first vocalist. He has a brief stint after Malice Mizer, um, and he's still known today. He's not like a major celebrity like Gact or anything, but he still performs music. Pretty good voice. Um, and so band is established in '92. They released a couple like demo tapes and stuff. They're featured on a compilation album, but they make their first release in '94, and that is, if I go over here, it's Memoir. Um, and Memoir is pretty good. I like it. There's one song on there. I can't remember the title. They're all in Japanese. But it's actually kind of a prototype for a song that would later appear on this album, Merveille, which is the one they're most well known for. And it's really cool to hear it performed by Tetsu as opposed to this point where Gact is the vocalist. It sounds very different, but it's very cool. Um, I like it a lot. Um, but interestingly, after that release in '94, Tetsu would be like, "All right, I'm out," because he thought being with the band was kind of damaging his image. He didn't want to be known for being with Malice Mizer and wearing the makeup and having the outfits and all that, which you can tell Mon is very much into. So it's like that's a no-no, between these two. We need the makeup with this. um, we need the makeup and the cool outfits. So he splits off in '94. About a year-long hiatus. Then Gaz leaves, and there's this other Japanese VK band called Nuclear Romance, and Gaz leaves to perform with them, and corresponding with that, okay, Kami was the past vocalist, or not vocalist, excuse me, past drummer for Euclid Romance. So he actually leaves them and joins Malice Mizer, so they kind of just trade. So now we have Kami instead of Gaz, and Tetsu leaves, and by '95, Gact is on the scene. He was with a smaller VK band that was, or no, indie band that was very unknown. trying to remember what it was called. Let me look at my notes here a second. Um, it was Kane's Feel. Yeah, very obscure. Nobody really knows about them. He's very much known for his work with Malice Mizer. Um, so he joins in '95. You got the five band members, these three, of course, and then now you have Gacht and Kami. And during this period, they would have their most releases and their most popular releases. So their first one is Voyage sans Retour. That's in 1996. This one's pretty good. It's so the first two were released under Mana's own independent record label, excuse me. And that's why, as I said in the beginning, there's this very like limited merchandise release where with Memoir, I know they only had I think 3,000 copies released, and with Voyage sans Retour, it's very similar. They only had 5,000 released, so very limited run with a lot of this music. Sadly, um, but yes, these were both produced under MIDI Net, which is Mana's own record label. Still is to this day. He's still a musician. And yeah, this sells pretty well. I mean, as as well as 5,000 can sell. And nevertheless, through bootlegs or whatever, um, their song Bel Air off this album becomes super popular, and with that, they gain enough, um, notoriety. They actually sign right before they, do Merveille. They sign with Nippon Columbia, and at that point, okay, they're like in the big leagues now. So yeah, I think they signed with Nippon sometime after 1996, and then I think they signed with them in '96 because that's when they explode. And then in '98, they take 2 years and they release Merveille. And Merveille is a awesome album, the one they're most well known for. It's really cool. Um, and it sells 200,000 copies, which was big back then, especially for VK, smaller genre. And tons of hits on there. You have Le Ciel, Agen. Agen is the one that had a prototype version of it on this one. Really cool song. Excellent when it's performed by Gact. Au revoir, great song. All really good music on this one. That's reflected. um, but interestingly, as seems to be the case with this band, in '99, a year after this releases, when everyone's still riding the high, it's still really popular music. Um, Gact right here, he decides he's gonna split. He's like, I'm done. Um, and it's still kind of mysterious why he left. Um, what's primarily accepted as the answer is so Lana had somebody else kind of take over management for MIDI.net, and that person Gact had a couple disagreements with. It really wasn't good because even though they were under Nippon Columbia at that time, MIDI.net was still kind of managing them, and I think it was something with paparazzi. MIDI.net was not, getting them away from him. So he had a big problem with that. So he splits off. Sadly, also in 1999, in June, um, Kami dies. It's thought to be from drug usage, but he had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in his brain. So he passes away. And so at this point, the band's like really not doing good. The drummer died. They released right here. They released Shinwa in 1999, and that's some of he has the butterfly here. That's kind of his symbol in the band is the butterfly. There's a couple music videos where he has butterflies and stuff. Um, they release his unreleased music, and they release like a couple of songs dedicated to him on this. It's nice, it's sweet. Um, and after that, the band would take not even really a hiatus, because they're still very active. Mana's managing everything basically. Gact is left. By the time 2000 rolls around, Klaha joins. Great. They never officially replaced Kami. They actually credit him on every album after this, which is not a lot. But it's a sweet gesture. They kind of just use fill-in drummers at this point on. And this is what I meant when I said less than 10 years. Yeah, they end in 2000. I think their final official release was an expanded version of this album in 2001. But yeah, they end in 2000 basically. As far as actually producing music, it was literally 6 to 7 years that they were actually active. But I mean, great band. Sorry, I forgot to mention also. A couple of their songs off Merveille got certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of Japan, and also the album itself climbed to number 2 on the I'm trying to let me find it. It's in my notes. Specific music chart. It's the major one for Japan. Um, it was the Oricon albums chart. That's like a big deal. They got to number two there with Mirve. So yeah, this was a huge album. Um, but anyways, sorry. Yeah, so Klaha joins, and then they have fill-in drummers, and they release I don't know Sedo, which is I mean the best known song off that album is probably Gardenia. I like Gardenia; it's a good song, but it's undoubtedly different. By the time Gact has left, I don't know. It's interesting, and I'll talk about this during the sound section. The sound is very interesting during the Klaha era. It's kind of a mix of all that came before it, and people like to dog on Klaha because he's no Gact. Gact has incredible vocal range, um, but I think he did a good enough job. The band was only around for like one more year. I get it, tough spot to fill. But yeah, they released this. It has Gardenia. Gardenia is one of their top songs, so he did a good enough job. And I mean, let me just final note. I mean, after that, the band just kind of split, indefinite hiatus. Klaha had his own solo career for a bit. Mana started his own band in 2002, and stuff just like fizzled away. But regarding their style and sound, during the Tetsu era, it's very traditional gothic rock. It's kind of just the same kind of gothic rock you'd be hearing in America as far as sound. It's very homogenous, I guess, if I were to say. Um, but I don't know. I think it has its place, and I do like some of the songs on there. I think Tetsu is a good vocalist, but of course, I mean, it gets better with Gact. Gact is the vocalist of the band, really. But by the time Gact comes around, they really hit their stride. They, they're using cellos, they're using violins, they're using a harp sometimes. They're really using like their instrumentation's really beautiful during this period, and it carries over into the period with Claw too. But it really starts with Gacht. That's kind of when the band made it big, and they were able to expand and experiment with stuff. Um, but yeah, they used tons of violins, cellos, harps, whatever, and they would use keyboard as a pipe organ. They would have Mana on that usually. Really cool, and their instrumentation just really expands, and using those instruments specifically allows them to get a lot of that gothic feel. And during the Gact period, it's notable because they really mix popular mainstream music, pop music, with the gothic, and it produces this really, for the time, unique sound that attracted a lot of people because it's like it's still gothic music. It's more gothic than ever. We're using all these classical instruments, but it still sounds like music that's popular enough that people would listen to it. So it's not super like niche anymore. It doesn't feel like weird to be into. Anyone can listen to it, and it's more palatable, but it doesn't sacrifice artistic vision. And I think that's kind of like why this was like the perfect era for the band. Um, After that, it's still good music. It leans a bit more on the rock side, sometimes even heavy metal during the Klaha era. Um, and it just isn't the same. But it's arguably more mainstream, I guess. It just doesn't sound as unique, I think. Um, but of course, it's still good. I don't know. I'm kind of just yapping at this point, but that's the best way I can kind of explain their instrumentation and how their sound kind of evolved. If I were to put it in more technical terms, they kind of start off as traditional Gothic rock. They go into kind of new wave or Baroque rock, um, and then towards the end, it's once again more traditional Gothic rock, um, but kind of those elements of new wave carry over, along with like I said, kind of a tinge of like heavy metal. So Legacy and Impact. This is all about Gokt. Gokt was kind of the I've kind of indicated, he was the big guy here. A lot of influence on Japanese culture and of course the genre. Like I said, Gakt would go on to have the most notable solo career. Mana starts his own band in 2002 called Moi de Moi. They're still playing, but they're not super notable. They don't have a lot of merch releases, as is typical with Mana. Um, Tetsu, still a vocalist, not very well known, still performs though. Let's see. Cozy has his own music that he makes. Nobody listens to it. But Gokt, he has a huge career. He's on. I mean, he's popular enough to be on like Japanese game shows and stuff. He is popular enough to be on the cover of Metal Gear Solid 2. I mean, he has no correlation with this game. They just put him on the cover for some reason. I don't know. He just is. He's cool enough. He's holding the baby. I don't know what's up with this, but he's on there. And the fashion of the band itself of Malice Mizer would go on to deeply influence a lot of the art in Death Note, specifically characters like Ryuk look exactly like, I don't know if you can see in the background the image of Gact being, he's descending by strings onto stage. Looks very similar to that. It's really cool. A lot of the fashion. It's very like serif-esque. It's really cool. A lot of their live performances are really just like works of art. Um, so yeah, the band itself has a huge cultural impact, and Gact like skyrockets. He has his own solo career now, of course. Still performs music, more traditional, like alternative for sure, but it's Gact. It sounds really good. His voice is awesome. Miserable was his first single after he left the band. I think it's a pretty good song. I listen to it regularly. I think it's decent enough. Um, of course, it's not the same sound, like I said, but it's cool. It's alternative still. I like it. But yeah, so I would say Mana and Tetsu have a decent hold in the respective Japanese alternative space, but nobody else really like gets big besides Gact. Um, yeah, so kind of sad to see the legacy of Malice Mizer is kind of just like it was revolutionary for the time, and it's still paid tribute today because it was awesome, but like nobody from it is like notable really anymore. Um, that kind of sucks, but it's kind of the nature of the band. It's only around for, like I said, not even 10 years. So I think it kind of makes sense, but still, I think they're underappreciated still. Um, yeah, so I don't know. In conclusion, I think they're a really cool band. I think looking up their live performances, you'll really just see how much they really made their music kind of a work of art. With the outfits and all that. Like I think I forgot to mention, by the time the GAC era rolls around, that's when they're dressing like this. That's when they're getting all the super cool outfits, and they're really dialing up the makeup and the clothing up to 11. And it's just really cool. If you specifically look up, actually, the image I used in the slide is from it. Their performance at the Yokohama Stadium in '98. Um, Amazing set, really cool, really artistic, really dramatic, um, just really cool to watch. And yeah, I just think they're a very underappreciated um, branch of the Japanese alternative genre. Um, and I really like listening to them, and I think their music is awesome. So yeah, thank you for listening.